You have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable situations, right? So, like, again, right in line with this whole podcast, you have to be comfortable with the unexpected. And I think that the more sometimes you can be comfortable with the unexpected, then you're going to be so much better off in life, just because that means you have pivoted more, it means you have more resilience to monitor those life waves. So yeah, so who cares? Like, we all mess up, we all make mistakes. So be comfortable with the unexpected. It takes you far.
Welcome to this week's As Unexpected podcast, when we talk to C-suite executives, entrepreneurs, and philanthropists about how they lead into the future when the future generally goes as unexpected. I'm Scott Marshall, your host, and my own professional experience has made me a believer that it's not how you show up when all goes as planned, but it is how you show up when things go as unplanned. Given all of their experiences, each of our guests has become very attuned to the fact that the future is not to be predicted. My hope is that this podcast can help all of you become better leaders by building the core leadership capabilities for leading in an uncertain world. Hey, welcome to everybody again to another episode of As Unexpected. My guest today, even though she didn't ask me to, she makes me sit up straighter. She makes me engage my core. Again, she hasn't asked me to do this, but I'm doing it because this guest is an entrepreneur, is purpose-driven, and just wants you to live a healthy life. That's what she's driven to do, a whole life, a healthy life. And I'm so excited to welcome Candice McField to this podcast. Candice, welcome.
Hey, Scott, thanks so much for having me. And you're sitting up straight. I love it.
I'm doing my best. Yeah, I actually have one of those stand-up, desks that move up and down, and I have right now a stool that I sit on, so it engages my legs and my core. It's a great way to do a podcast because it keeps me upright and everything, right?
Yeah.
So, Candice, can you please provide our listeners a bit of intro to yourself, what your background is, and what your current work is? It would be fabulous.
Yeah. So, hey, everyone, I'm Candice McField, as Scott said. And my background is I'm born and raised in Kansas City, went to school in Los Angeles, but moved back because I realized after living in Los Angeles, I'm a Midwest girl at heart, but I studied economics. So I kind of have like a whole different life where I studied economics. I worked in finance for like 7 years, but at the same time, when I was working in finance, I started bodybuilding. So like for women, I did the figure division. And so that led to like me winning my professional card. And then I did figure shows across our country. I did a few international shows, right? So while I was working in finance, people would ask me, hey, what should I do for eating and working out? So I left finance and rolled that into a business. So I've been an entrepreneur since like 2008. And it's just been a journey ever since. My story is that I started off with like in-home personal training and boot camps. And then I started grad school and my life got really busy. So I just said, hey, I want to do online training because it's more scalable. So this in 2014, I started online health coaching, and that's what I still do now, working with the executive market. So it's been a real thrill for me. And I would say my life is in threes. So number one, like I work with executives through Candice McField Fitness. But that's like my passion. The second thing, like my calling is like working in faith and fitness, because spirituality is very important to me. So I have a sister brand called As For Me and My Body. So I wrote a book and I created an app for that. And so that's the second part. And that third part of what I do is what I call my legacy, which is a nonprofit I have called Fight Globesity. And the whole purpose is to help youth become healthy global citizens, right? And so that brings in that global and cultural awareness, not only being healthy, but helping like our kids understand there's so much more than the United States. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So sorry. So yeah, there's a few things I do. I wear a lot of different hats, but I absolutely love what I do.
Yeah. And obviously we'll mention this at the end, but CandiceMcField.com, go
Yes.
to that website. You'll see those three parts of your whole life.
Yeah.
I've explored the website. There's so much you're doing, clearly driven to just contribute to the world in so many ways. So impressive that you pursued bodybuilding. You really embrace, personal health and human health. Along that journey, you've already kind of illustrated a couple pivots. Like things doesn't necessarily go as planned, as
Right.
expected. And we love hearing authentic stories about how we sort of faced in unexpected circumstances and how we showed up for ourselves, what was hard, what was not hard, and then how we showed up for those around us because we are social beings and we need to be present for others. I'm guessing you have a few stories to share about something that went unexpected and you had to figure out how to show up. Can you start us off with a story?
Yeah, by far, I have probably plenty of stories. The first one that pops in my mind is working in finance, right? Like, so number one was my first job. I was actually on the research side of the industry. And make a long story short, there was a situation where I literally went to the gym over lunch one day, and then I came back from lunch, and then like the SEC was there. So by the time I came back from lunch, Scott, I didn't have a job because they had closed down the doors to that financial firm due to some things that the owner, the president, was doing. So that was unexpected.
Oh,
so, so I had to like
wow.
figure out what was next. And so for me, the pivot was like I said, I was in the research side of the industry at the time, and I didn't love it. Right, it was like something I did out of college, but my heart wasn't into it, and that led me to going to a bigger, like that's when I went to Merrill Lynch. I went to on the sales side, and so then I think it was a journey of self discovery, right? Because even like I went from like a family firm to, Fortune 500 company. You're just a number, and it's all about sales and quotas and things like that. So that's the first story of like having to pivot. And that pivot really helped me like on the path to like where I'm at now with health and wellness. Cause even though I did go to Merrill Lynch afterwards, but that Merrill Lynch step then helped me get to to health and wellness as well.
Yeah, can we go back to that moment?
Sure.
Whoa, what?
Yeah.
So you've just worked out, you come back,
Yeah.
SEC's in there. What went through your whole body and mind at that moment?
Yeah.
How do you? Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So to start, it wasn't uncommon. Like when you're in the financial industry, like the state or the SEC, I mean, they come in and they do checks. I remember being an intern there in college, and like the state was there. And so what happens is if there's anything off, they give you a compliance checklist. And so you have like, I don't know, 90 days to do whatever for that compliance, whatever requirements. But this was different, right? Like, and at first I thought it was that, like, oh, whatever, I'm sure the firm will be fine. But no, like they literally shut the doors down right then and there. And that was it. Like zero job. Didn't at the time, at that moment, I didn't know what I was going to do. And it wasn't until later on that day I was like, the realization like, oh no, this isn't like, hey, do a couple things. But this is like the doors are closed. And so I think as the staff, we all had to figure out what was next for us. So yeah, very unexpected experience.
yeah. And again, if you don't mind, just I know there's probably some details we can't go into, but I am curious about how how did you recover for yourself? Like, how did you the next day you wake up? There's no job. What's the next step? I mean, this is something that can happen to anybody, right? And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
how do you wake up? You're like, I don't have a job. What's the next step? What do you do?
Yeah, and I think this is a very valid question given today's climate. There's a lot of people losing jobs unexpectedly right now. But I mean, I think honestly, so this was back in like '06 or something like that. The next day, the next morning, I think you're just still living in a haze, right? It doesn't seem like reality. The reality was only setting in like, oh, I didn't have to get up to go to the office, right? But I honestly think like there's a range of emotions you go through. Like you're shocked, you're surprised, you're like mad, and then like anger. Like how did this happen? How did no one knew, right? Like, and so then you're like, then probably the emotion of being afraid and scared sets in because you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And yet I had, I had just bought a house, my first house. And so like, I got bills to pay. And you're like, well, I guess, let me go find another job because like these bills are not going to stop coming in. So I think honestly, it took a couple days, a few days just to be like, okay, like just decompress from the shock of everything. And then you have to like put yourself in motion and just like I like to say, you just have to jump in the pool and start swimming, right? Like whether you're dog paddling or you're actually doing some type of real swimming stroke, like you just have to get moving. And I think that's what I did. I just started moving as far as like, okay, let me just figure out like what's out there. Like, let me, finance at the time was like my number one thing. So like, let me just stay in finance. Let's see what's out there in the world of finance and start putting in different applications. I remember going to people in my network and telling people like what happened. Cause I believe that, it's about who you know in this world a lot, and not so much what you know, but like people can open doors for you. So that's what I did. I just started moving and I started talking to people in my network, and that door opened up for me to go to Merrill Lynch.
This episode of As Unexpected is sponsored in part by Semester at Sea, a study abroad program for college students and adults on career breaks, sabbaticals, or retired, interested in learning and exploring the world together. Learn more about the Lifelong Learner program at www.semesteratSea.org. That's great. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I don't want to overstate this, so I'm careful with my words, but there is this almost mythology around 7 stages of grief. It can be for anything that's dramatic. But what I've read and through my discussions, it's not a linear process. It's like you could be shocked and you could be sad and you could be angry, and it's not linear, and you can feel these things. And to your point, it's how do I start moving forward?
Yeah.
How do I get through this period of time and move forward? And as you said, during these days, there's a lot of people who are facing a similar circumstance, not of their own doing, and here we are. They got to figure out how to deal with the range of emotions that are nonlinear and start to move forward. Yeah, and tell us, where did maybe not unexpected, but it's just something it seems like wasn't part of your early plans, but became the heart and soul of what you do, this commitment to health. Like you started to go to the gym, and then you started to bodybuild, and then you started a business. Like, what was the origin story of that? And to what degree would you say it was expected or unexpected?
Wow. It's a mixture. Looking back on life, I would say it's expected. But when I was like studying economics in school and finance, it's unexpected. But so that goes back to my story of being a kid, because I was the 3-year-old, 4-year-old. I was the athlete. I was playing t-ball and soccer, and all I knew was growing up was sports. And I think sports it teaches you so much about like being able to pivot, and having those unexpected moments. So if you look at my life from like, oh, I've always been athletic, it's very expected. But the reality is like I love math, going to school, and I loved economics, and so that's how I ended up majoring that. So I was like, oh, I'll work in finance. I like numbers a lot. So when I took that path, I never in my life would have thought I'd be working in health and wellness. Like, not at all. And the story behind me getting into health and wellness really is because I had a colleague who was a bodybuilder. So back in 2004, as an office, we all went to support his show. And so I'm in the audience, Scott, looking at the ladies grace the stage for the figure division. And I'm like, I can do this because, I've always been an athlete. And so it was the next year I tried it out, and I got absolutely massacred on stage. I did not place at all. I worked with my trainer for a year, and I did that same show a year later, and I ended up winning my professional card in '06. And so, yeah, like I said, the rest is history, where I did shows across our country and a few international shows. But so then, to take a step back too, like when I was working at Merrill Lynch, like the reality is by then I was already doing like a work in like health and wellness. I was competing. I knew that time at Merrill Lynch was coming to an end. So it was just like a natural progression at that point to roll into the health and wellness business. And so that part by then, now it's probably expected and not unexpected. But I think the initial path I was on as like, oh, in college, finance is very unexpected. So that's really how the story.
Yeah. I like how you frame that, which is when the unexpected becomes the expected.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, if I'm capturing what you're saying in short terms, I mean, that's what it feels like you're saying. There's a quote, I can't remember who said it, but it goes something like this. It's, we live life forwards, we understand it backwards. So you sort of look back and you
Yeah.
say, oh, yeah, it all makes sense.
Sure.
But as we live forward, we don't necessarily know what the next step's going to be.
Right. No, that's a great like saying and phrase, but it makes total sense, right? Like I think we have to do so many things like kind of blind, right? Like we're taking those steps forward, especially in entrepreneurship. Like, I mean, do I really know like what's going to work sometimes or not work? I really don't. I think people think we know, but we're just taking educated and strategic guesses. We're putting, a lot of thought behind it and our knowledge, but at the end of the day, like we really don't know until we have that experience underneath our belt. So yeah, we understand it looking backwards, but we don't so much understand a lot of things looking forward. That's really neat.
Yeah. So you shared with everybody this idea that you went to a show, you saw the competitors, and this light bulb goes on. Was there a similar light bulb moment when you say, I think I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to launch my own business. Was there a moment when you're living forward and understanding backwards where you said, oh, I'm going to do that?
Yeah. What that light bulb moment for me was like, I'm leaving Merrill Lynch, right? And so honestly, I thought I was going to go to grad school at the time. Like my dream was always to go to Thunderbird School of Global Management. And which I did, but I didn't go when I thought I was going to go. And so I'm leaving Merrill Lynch. I'm like, oh, I'll go to grad school now, right? And get an MBA, whatever. But at the same time, I got a phone call from here in Kansas City. There's a foundation called the Kauffman Foundation, huge nonprofit. They had something called the Urban Entrepreneurship Program. And so they were like, hey, Candice, do you still want to go through this program? Because I had like applied initially, like when I first started Merrill Lynch. So this is 2 years ago. And then they finally called me like 2 years later. And so I was like, well, sure. Let's talk about it and let me hear the details. So anyway, I ended up going through that entrepreneurship program, and that's how I ended up writing my first business plan. So that light bulb moment was like really for me, like leaving Merrill, getting that phone call from Kauffman, and then having to say to myself, you know what? Grad school is always going to be there, but this opportunity to like
Yeah,
open
yeah.
this business program through Kauffman is not. So I decided to go through that program for Kauffman Foundation, and honestly, I've been an entrepreneur since. I haven't looked back. And that's another funny part of my story. I remember walking out of Merrill Lynch for the very last time, and I heard this like like sometimes you can like hear God speaking to you, like in a it's not like audible, but into your heart, into your soul. And it was just that rationale and that voice just saying, do not look backwards. And so from that moment, I knew like my life and time and finance was like done, right? Like it was a journey, but now it was time to focus on health and wellness.
What you just said actually is that pivot moment. You've just like naturally led into this quote that I found, and as I told you when we were talking before this, I I always have to figure out, is this quote going to fit for the guest? And
Sure.
given what you just said, I think it really does. So the quote comes from a book called "Crushing It"
Hmm.
by Gary Vaynerchuk, and it's fairly short, but it's pretty punchy. It goes like this: remember, you're only crushing it if you're living entirely on your terms.
Hmm. Yeah.
This moment of you walking out of Merrill Lynch,
Yeah.
going to Kaufman,
Yeah.
like, and here you are. So, can you share what's your response? What does that stir up for you? That quote.
Yeah. So a couple things. Number one was like on it said on your own terms, right? So I think that on your own terms for me, like it's like walking in your purpose. Like what is your own terms? Your own terms is your purpose. And I think so many people are probably not working in their purpose or living life in their purpose, for a number of different reasons. But that moment, like walking out of Merrill Lynch, I knew going forward, like this was my opportunity to do me or be free and make my own self happy, right? Again, like on my own terms. And that's that road of an entrepreneur. Like we are at the end of the day like a little bit crazy, a little you know but we're passionate about what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish. And so honestly, that's the moment I've been operating on my own terms. Like, yeah. Love it.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely seems to fit for you in
Hmm.
so many ways. Um, if you understand life backwards for yourself and you see those paths, like you've always been involved in sports and you've always been very comfortable with numbers and really good at math. So one of these led into an early path for you, right? Which is
Yes.
in finance.
Yes.
The other one led into your current role and future and so forth. If you were to take that story in its condensed form and say, I'm going to now speak to an audience of 20-year-olds
Hmm.
about that condensed story, what would you tell 20-year-olds? Remember, I'm thinking about my 20-year-old self. Boy, I was like, what am I doing? Right?
Yeah. No, that's a solid question, right? And one of the things I think about, like I would tell 20-year-olds is, and it really honestly comes from semester at sea, right? So I had the opportunity to go spring of '02. In Japan, one of my tour guides, she told us the phrase like ichi-go, ichi-e. And so it was basically just means like put your best heart forward, right? There's like one life, one chance. So the story is like in the Japanese culture, you have, tea ceremonies are very important. So you have one opportunity to impress your first guest. And so, and actually it's a tattoo I have. And because it meant so much to me when she told us that. And I was like, oh wow. So literally like put your best heart forward always. So I think that's the message I would tell 20-year-olds. So whether I was like working in finance or now in health and wellness, like my job is to put my best heart forward, put my best foot forward in anything that I do, right? Do it to your fullest ability or capabilities. And so I think that's what I would tell 20 year olds, and also to follow your own path, right? Like you don't have to go down like what's just called a linear road. Like you can pivot and you have curiosity, you can explore those things, especially being so young, right? And you may not have responsibilities yet and things like that. So, um, yeah, put your heart, forward all the time. Lead with your heart, and have the courage to make pivots along the way.
Can you say that Japanese phrase again, please?
Oh yes, ichi-go, ichi-e. I hope that I'm pronouncing it right, but it's ichigo and then like dash ichie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You only have sort of, if I, again, you only have one chance to impress that guest. Like it's
Yes.
each time.
Yes. Yeah.
If it, if it,
Yeah, you have one chance. Like if you and I first met, I have one chance to make that lasting impression upon you, right? So like I need to give you my full attention and respect and whatnot, right? We have one chance sometimes when we meet people to make any type of impression. So you got to make a great impression. So put your best heart forward. Yeah.
yeah, and it comes from the tea ceremony. Is that right? Is that sort of
Yes.
it?
Yep.
Yeah, that makes a great sense. And I don't know if you knew this, Candice, but I spent of any country, I've spent the most time in Japan. I studied abroad there in undergrad, and I
Okay.
lived there for a year teaching English after undergrad, and I've been there back many times. And it is one of those cultures for me, and maybe you find this, which the contrasts are so powerful when you grow up in the United States. Individualism versus collectivism, tradition versus future orientation. Care for elders versus care for the, I mean, there's just all these contrasts that for US citizens can be so powerful, and we can gain so much from that. I love that you have that on you now and carry it with you in your heart and mind. That's
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah, like honestly, it's been a part of my life since that moment back in 2002. And for me, Japan was our last country. So this was like my final days as semester at sea. But yeah, it was just something I always treasured, and I do try to live by it and tell others, right? So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to capture that in this episode for sure. I want
good.
everybody to listen. They're so great. Listen, Candice, we're at about time. I love it when people just finish with their final words of wisdom for our listeners. If there's anything really you want to leave them with, obviously just what you said is powerful. But if there's
Yeah,
anything that is an exclamation point on that for everybody,
yeah.
this is the moment.
Yeah, so I went to school at Loyola Marymount University for undergrad, right? And one of my dear friends went to USC. And so he later in life told me this phrase. It goes something like this, like, you have to be comfortable with the like uncomfortable situations, right? So like, again, right in line with this whole podcast, you have to be comfortable with the unexpected. And I think that the more sometimes you can be comfortable with the unexpected, then you're going to be so much better off in life, just because that means you have pivoted more, it means you have more resilience to monitor those life waves. So who cares? Like, we all mess up, we all make mistakes, but just be comfortable with discomfort. That's the phrase he said. Be comfortable with discomfort. So be comfortable with unexpected. It takes you far.
Yeah, love it. That's a perfect finish. Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you for having me.
appreciate
Yeah.
your wisdom, and hopefully we will connect in person this summer.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. I'll keep you posted on the dates I'll be in Fort Collins.
Awesome. Thanks again, Candice.
All right. Thank you.
This episode of As Unexpected is sponsored in part by Semester at Sea, a study abroad program where students visit 10 countries on 3 continents, all while taking 3 to 4 college classes through Colorado State University. See course offerings and upcoming voyage itineraries at www.semesteratsea.org. Thank you for joining this week's episode of the As Unexpected podcast. The viewpoints and opinions of featured guests do not necessarily represent those of the Institute for Shipboard Education or Semester at Sea. Hit the like button, share it with your colleagues, family, and friends, and remember, be curious, be compassionate, be courageous. That's what it takes to lead as unexpected.